Good morning, Ron and Penny. So I'm going to read for about, let me start my timer. For about 12 minutes. And I'm going to continue reading out of Boy by Roald Dahl. So here we go. Over in Norway during the summer of 1911, while taking a trip in a small coastal steamer in the Oslo fjord, he met a young lady called Sophie Magdalene Hesselberg. Being a fellow who knew a good thing when he saw one, he proposed to her within a week and married her soon after that. This is the picture I showed you last week. Mama engaged, it says. So that's his mom. Roald Dahl took his Norwegian wife on a honeymoon in Paris, and after that back to the house in Landhof. The two of them were deeply in love and blissfully happy, and during the next 6 years, she bore him 4 children, a girl, another girl, a boy, me, and a third girl. And there is Roald Dahl at 8 months. There were now 6 children in the family, 2 by my father's first wife and 4 by his second. A larger and grander house was needed, and the money was there to buy it. So in 1918, when I was 2, we all moved into an imposing country mansion beside the village of Raider, I think that's how you pronounce it, about 8 miles west of Cardiff. You want to say hi? You guys want to say good morning?
Oh, hi, good morning.
They woke up not too long ago, So in 1918, when I was 2, I remember it as a mighty house with turrets on its roof and with majestic lawns and terraces all around it. There were many acres of farm and woodland, and a number of cottages for the staff. Very soon the meadows were full of milking cows, and the sties were full of pigs, and the chicken run was full of chickens. There were several massive shire horses for pulling the plows and the hay wagons, and there was a plowman and a cowman and a couple of gardeners, and all manner of servants in the house itself. Like his brother Oscar in La Rochelle, Roald Dahl had made it in no uncertain manner. And they have a picture of the house at Raider. I have to look that up and see how to pronounce that. Radyr. Isn't it pretty? It's a really beautiful house. Okay. Are you sleepy, Polly? We were out late last night. We went up to my sister's house in Dayton, and her son was having his 10th birthday, so we all had dinner together and cake, and we got home at about 11. Is it 11? About 11 o'clock or 11. No, it was 11:30, sorry. So we're a little bit sleepy this morning. Okay, but what interests me most of all about these 2 brothers, Harold and Oscar, is this. Although they came from a simple, unsophisticated small-town family, both of them, quite independently of one another, developed a powerful interest in beautiful things. As soon as they could afford it, they began to fill their houses with lovely paintings and fine furniture. In addition to that, my father became an expert gardener, and above all, a collector of alpine plants. My mother used to tell me how the 2 of them would go on expeditions up into the mountains of Norway, and how he would frighten her to death by climbing one-handed up steep cliff faces to reach small alpine plants growing high up on some rocky ledge. He was also an accomplished wood carver, and most of the mirror frames in the house were his own work. So indeed was the entire mantelpiece around the fireplace in the living room, a splendid design of fruit and foliage and intertwining branches carved in oak. He was a tremendous diary writer. I still have one of his many notebooks from the Great War of 1914 to 1918. Every single day during those 5 years, he would write several pages of comment and observation about the events of the time. He wrote with a pen, and although Norwegian was his mother tongue, he always wrote his diaries in perfect English. He harbored a curious theory about how to develop a sense of beauty in the minds of his children. Every time my mother became pregnant, he would wait until the last 3 months of her pregnancy and then he would announce to her that the glorious walks must begin. Oh my gosh. These glorious walks consisted of him taking her to places of great beauty in the countryside and walking with her for about an hour. The last 3 months of her pregnancy, walking for about an hour. Oh my gosh, I would have hurt this man. For about an hour each day, so that she could absorb the splendor of the surroundings. Hey, Jimmy. His theory was that if the eye of a pregnant woman was constantly observing the beauty of nature, this beauty would somehow become transmitted to the mind of the unborn baby within her womb, and that baby would grow up to be a lover of beautiful things. This was the treatment that all of his children received before they were born. A letter from Papa. So he has a picture of a letter, and it's long, deep drafts of sea air before breakfast. I'm reading, there's an excerpt. In fact, before every something. So I guess that's his plan of how to take his wife on a walk and give her experiences to share with the children through the womb, of course. Okay, kindergarten. This is 1922 to 1923, and he's age 6 to 7 years old. In 1920, when I was still only 3, my mother's eldest child, my own sister, Astrid, died from appendicitis. She was 7 years old when she died, which was also the age of my own eldest daughter, Olivia, when she died from measles 42 years later. Astrid was far and away my father's favorite. He adored her beyond measure, and her sudden death left him literally speechless for days afterward. He was so overwhelmed with grief that when he himself went down with pneumonia a month or so afterwards, he did not much care whether he lived or died. If they had had penicillin in those days, neither appendicitis nor pneumonia would have been so much of a threat. But with no penicillin or any other magical antibiotic cures, pneumonia in particular was a very dangerous illness indeed. The pneumonia patient, on about the 4th or 5th day, would invariably reach what was known as the crisis. The temperature soared and the pulse became rapid. The patient had to fight to survive. My father refused to fight. He was thinking, I am quite sure, of his beloved daughter, and he was wanting to join her in heaven. So he died. He was 57 years old. Oh, this is making me so sad. Sorry. My mother had now lost a daughter and a husband, all in the space of a few weeks. Heaven knows what it must have felt like to be hit with a double catastrophe like this. Here she was, a young Norwegian, in a foreign land, suddenly having to face all alone the very gravest problems and responsibilities. She had 5 children to look after, 3 of her own and 2 by her husband's first wife. And to make matters worse, she herself was expecting another baby in 2 months' time. A less courageous woman would almost certainly have sold the house and packed her bags and headed straight back to Norway with the children. Over there in her own country, she had her mother and father willing and waiting to help her, as well as her 2 unmarried sisters. But she refused to take the easy way out. Her husband had always stated most emphatically that he wished all his children to be educated in English schools. They were the best in the world, he used to say. Better by far than the Norwegian ones. Better even than the Welsh ones, despite the fact that he lived in Wales and had his business there. So here is a picture of Roald Dahl with his mom. He maintained that there was some kind of magic about English schooling, and that the education it provided had caused the inhabitants of a small island to become a great nation and a great empire, and to produce the world's greatest literature. No child of mine, he kept saying, is going to school anywhere else but in England. My mother was determined to carry out the wishes of her dead husband. To accomplish this, she would have to move house from Wales to England, but she wasn't ready for that yet. She must stay here in Wales for a while longer, where she knew people who could help and advise her, especially her husband's great friend and partner, Mr. Adnison. But even if she wasn't leaving Wales quite yet, it was essential that she move to a smaller and more manageable house. She had enough children to look after without having to bother about a farm as well. So as soon as her fifth child, another daughter, was born, she sold the big house and moved to a smaller one a few miles away in Landolph. It was called Cumberland Lodge, and it was nothing more than a pleasant, medium-sized suburban villa. So it was in Landolph 2 years later, when I was 6 years old, that I went to my first school. And here's a picture of him when he was 6. Nice smile. The school was a kindergarten run by 2 sisters, Mrs. Corfield and Miss Tucker, and it was called Elm Tree House. It is astonishing how little one remembers about one's life before the age of 7 or 8. I can tell you all sorts of things that happened to me from 8 onwards, but only very few before that. Oh, shoot. It's okay. I might have spilled my water a little bit, but I'll clean it up. So I should use the table. Okay. Let's see. Okay, now I remember where I was. The school, I read that too. Okay, sorry. I went for a whole year to Elm Tree House, but I cannot even remember what my classroom looked like, nor can I picture the faces of Mrs. Corfield or Miss Tucker, although I am sure they were very sweet and smiling. I do have a blurred memory of sitting on the stairs and trying over and over again to tie one of my shoelaces, but that is all that comes back to me at this distance of the school itself. On the other hand, I can remember very clearly the journeys I made to and from the school, because they were so tremendously exciting. Great excitement is probably the only thing that really interests a 6-year-old boy, and it sticks in his mind. In my case, the excitement centered around my new tricycle. I rode to school on it every day, with my eldest sister riding on the ropes. I'm just going to finish the page. Let's see. No grown-ups came with us, and I can remember oh so vividly how the 2 of us used to go racing at enormous tricycle speeds down the middle of the road, and then most glorious of all, when we came to a corner, we would lean to one side and take it on 2 wheels. All of this, you must realize, was in the good old days when the sight of a motor car on the street was an event, and it was quite safe for tiny children to go tricycling and whooping their way to school in the center of the highway. So much then for my memories of kindergarten 62 years ago. It's not much, but it's all there is left. And then he has a little picture of his tricycle. I love the drawings in this book and the photographs. This is great. I love this book. Okay, well that's it for today. Sorry. And I'm gonna get the boys to say goodbye. Hey Charlie. Hey Polly, we can't see your head. Okay. Have you ever seen more enthusiasm? Okay, you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Love you. Bye-bye.